In this video, I'm going to walk you through my entire ADHD diagnosis journey from start to finish in 4 steps. Before we get started, I do need to say up front that your ADHD diagnosis journey may be slightly different to mine, and that's completely fine. But if you're someone who's in those early stages of maybe realizing that you have ADHD and you don't know where to start, then this video should bring some clarity on what direction you can head in. And also, if we haven't met before, hello, my name's Max. I'm a qualified personal trainer who has ADHD, and I specialize in coaching other people who have ADHD to hit their fitness goals. Okay, so step 1 involved me speaking to the person that I thought was going to diagnose me with ADHD, but no, they don't actually have the qualification to do that. So I rang this place up, I asked to make an appointment saying, I think I have ADHD. And they said, cool, well, we need you to fill in this quick form before you actually have your appointment. And it was one of those like standardized ADHD questionnaires, which you can probably find online. Like it asks, how often do you struggle with focusing on a task or like starting tasks, you know, those sorts of things. So I sent that back, I had the appointment, and they said, yeah, well, it kind of sounds like you have ADHD, which I was a bit confused at first because I'd heard about this really long wait list and I thought, well, that was a bit quick. And that's when they hit me with, right, well, we're going to try and get you onto the wait list now. I was like, right, okay, that makes sense. And that wait list I didn't actually get onto, which I'll explain in a second, but that was the first step. It was contacting my GP and having an appointment, which then brings me on to the second step. So if it's not the GP that will diagnose you, who can? Well, it's a psychiatrist, but in order to actually see a psychiatrist on the NHS, you need to join the wait list. And when you get onto that wait list, it's about a 2 to 3 year wait before you actually see a psychiatrist. But when I was going through this process, which was in about May or June of 2023, my application to get onto that wait list was rejected, and they weren't taking on any new applications until January of 2024. So there was like a 6 to 7 month wait for me to get onto a 2 to 3 year wait list. Yeah, so I kind of just threw the towel in. I was like, right, okay, cool, well, I'm gonna leave that then. I left it a couple of days and then I just thought, right, well, I'll look into doing this privately, seeing how much it's gonna cost. And so you might be thinking now, right, well, if it's gonna be that long on the NHS, then I might as well just go directly to a private psychiatrist. Some psychiatrists will require that you have a GP referral letter. Some places don't, they don't need one. I got my referral letter. So when the GP told me that they can't get me onto the wait list until 2024, I said, can you provide me with a referral letter so I can go private? So I did my research and I found a psychiatrist. This then brings me on to part 3, which is the diagnosis appointment itself and what actually happens in that phone call. Now, I was incredibly lucky because when I got in contact with a psychiatrist, they actually coincidentally had a cancellation in 2 days' time, and they asked me, do I want that? I mean, yes, of course, I'll take it. And in regards to fees, it was less than what I thought it was going to be. I'd heard figures of like thousands and thousands of pounds, so this came as like a nice surprise, really. It's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, and I'm incredibly grateful for being able to do it, but it was less than what I thought it was going to be. And so the diagnosis appointment itself was about 3 hours long. It was on Zoom. There's questions like, you know, how often do you struggle with your focus or starting tasks, those sorts of things. But then there was quite a lot of questions which I didn't think was relevant, or, you know, I was a bit confused why it was being asked at the time. And then I realized, you know, this person, they're trying to build up a profile of you and how you are and how your life has been. So, you know, there are questions like about school and how I was, or, you know, what hobbies I'm into, like what sort of jobs I've had or what's happened in them, etc. How have I performed in those jobs? So this went on for about 3 hours, and towards the end of the call, you know, he was saying, yeah, you know, there's elements of this and there's elements of that. So I had to ask directly, is that me diagnosed with ADHD? And he said, yeah, you know, it looks like you have combined type ADHD, which is elements of hyperactivity, but also elements of inattentiveness as well. And at the end of that phone call, he then asked me, you know, how do you want to move forward with treatment for this? Do you want to do nothing? Do you want to have therapy? Do you want to try medication? And I'm already on medication for anxiety, so I wasn't against the idea of trying medication. And so I said, yep, cool, let's try medication. Which then brings me on to the final part, which is all about this. Let's talk about how much this costs and what a shared care agreement is. If you go down the route of doing this privately, that psychiatrist has the authority to prescribe medication. Your GP, on the other hand, doesn't have the authority to prescribe some medications. This is a controlled substance, so only people that are qualified can actually prescribe it. What the shared care agreement does is that it passes the responsibility from the psychiatrist to your GP. And the reason why you want to get your medication on a shared care agreement is because then a huge part of the cost of this medication will be covered by the NHS. But before you get that shared care agreement, you need to go through a trial and error process with your psychiatrist to see which medication is going to be the right one for you. And when you're in that process, you will be paying for private prescriptions. And at the time of recording this, these 28 capsules here was £114. Now, I was incredibly lucky because This was the first medication that I tried, and it was the one that just worked for me. So I went back to my psychiatrist. I said, hey, cool, can we get this on the shared care agreement, because this is fantastic. And so he then put that shared care agreement together, passed that on to my GP, and now I pay the NHS prices. And this on the NHS is £9.65 at the time of recording this. So what you can't do is go down the route of getting your diagnosis privately and then just running to your GP and asking them to prescribe you medication so that you can get it a bit cheaper. You need to go through that process first of finding which one works for you, then you can pass it off to the NHS. And if you want to find out what this medication actually does and how it's improved my life massively, then you can watch this video up here. If there isn't anything for you to click on right now, it's because you're early and I haven't actually finished that video yet, so it should be there soon.